I gotta say, if I told you all I didn't see a big fight coming after E3, I'd be lying. And I'm pretty sure most of you saw it coming as well. It seems like a lot of people just don't quite understand what E3 is really for. That or they do and just pretend like they don't. E3's main purpose isn't so much for us gamers as it is for investors and to some extent industry press. And because of this, companies like Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft have to be real careful how they go about it. Remember, investors aren't fanboys. They won't invest in something simply because of the company name. They invest because that company makes them money. It's simply companies' way of saying, this is why you should continue investing in us. So when people say Sony lost, Microsoft lost, or Nintendo lost, I think to myself, lost what? From what I saw in this year's E3, each company did exactly what they wanted to do. Microsoft showed what they wanted to show. They showed investors that with their new Kinect games, they can bring in more casuals to the Xbox 360, which of course means more Xbox 360 and Kinect sales, which means more money for the investors. Now, I will admit, there were parts that made me laugh. It wasn't the Disney game, since it was little kids playing it, and the game is clearly made for kids. It was the football game. And if you guys saw that, you'd know exactly why I laughed. I will also admit one other thing that quite a few people were saying that I agreed with, and that was Microsoft trying to pass off multiplats as exclusives. I think this was done because chances are people who own both the 360 and the PS3 will get the 360 version because of the whole idea of releasing DLC on the 360 version first. If you only own the PS3, then I'm sure waiting 1 month really doesn't matter. And ending with Halo 4 was probably the smartest and most predictable move they made. With Gears 3 on its way, and games like Call of Duty being shown as exclusive simply for the quicker release of DLC, ending it with Halo pretty much was all they needed to do. As far as losing, I'm not quite sure what they lost, unless people were looking at E3 from a completely different standpoint. Then there was Sony's turn, which for me started out good but got boring once the Vita stuff hit, mainly because I'm not really a handheld fan anymore like I was. But as I've said, this show really wasn't meant for me anyway. Sony needed to give the investors a reason to continue investing in the gaming portion of their company, and I was a little concerned about that due to the whole PSN incident. But I think overall Sony won't have any real problems with that as long as it doesn't happen again within the next few years. They showed quite a few games for the PS3, and as far as how good it was for gamers came down to if you liked the games they showed or not. I know a lot of these games were already heard of, but once again, this was more for the investors than it was for us. Sony needed to pretty much say, these games are the reason why people will continue to spend money to support this company, so the investors' money doesn't go to waste. As far as the Vita is concerned, this was pretty much Sony's way of saying, despite the Nintendo 3DS, we too can take control of some of that handheld market. This one was a problem since the PSP didn't quite turn out as successful. So with this one, Sony pretty much went all out, which is either going to make this a big hit or a big miss. And with Sony making the price the same as the 3DS, which was a very smart move, though if it doesn't work out could end up really costing them in the end, this could very well be the handheld that truly does give Nintendo a run for their money. And speaking of Nintendo, I must say I found their conference rather interesting. While I didn't know if Nintendo's new console would be more powerful than the 360 or PS3, I did know that even with that, Nintendo would still be Nintendo. And after the release of the Wii and the announcement of the Wii U, it's quite possible that Nintendo doesn't like to follow the norm. And in this case, that just might be a good idea. When it comes to the three consoles, Sony and Microsoft, or maybe their gamers, have made a set of rules as to what a console should and shouldn't have. With the Wii and the Wii U, we can see that Nintendo doesn't really follow what others consider the norm, and I'm actually happy they did that, because having three consoles that do the exact same thing doesn't really give you much variety. So when the PS4 comes out, I hope it doesn't do everything the PS3 did but with better graphics, because if it does, I'll end up getting bored of it because I'll feel that I'm playing the exact same thing just with better graphics. When I saw Nintendo's conference, I pretty much heard it worked before and it'll work again. Of course, there's no guarantee that it will, but from what they showed, it'll at least be pretty interesting with what all they can do with it, since I'm pretty sure they didn't show everything. And as far as the 3DS goes, just like the Vita, didn't really care.